Inviting people into the challenge is huge. And so when we look at this, I'm going to play on that a little bit because I think it's really important. And I think that so many of us miss this opportunity in early sobriety.
I'm going to say strangers saved my life. It
Yeah.
wasn't the people that I knew. It was the strangers that I found the courage to share my hard stuff with that showed up.
Anybody else out there that's struggling, that's just going through anything, I promise you, there's so much more. There's so much more out there.
Staying connected and, finding close friends in sobriety to talk to. Yeah, I guess you have to push past the wanting to close yourself off when you're feeling that way.
I'm actually getting emotional talking about it because I've never had anybody tell me you can do it.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery Podcast, where we believe that connection is the opposite of addiction, vulnerability is the antidote to shame, and personal growth is the key to loving your sober life. We're your hosts, Julie Miller and Steve Knapp. Join us in conversations with people all over the globe about how you can thrive, not just survive, in a life without alcohol.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery Podcast, everyone. So happy to have these three folks joining us today. And of course, always grateful for our listeners that hang out with us every week. We are going to talk about friendships today, and specifically how our friendships change when we quit drinking and sometimes even disappear completely. So one of the most searched terms regarding living alcohol-free is I lost all my friends when I quit drinking. And that tells us that it's something that a lot of people face when they make the choice to go sober, and it's really painful. And then when someone mentions that in a group or online, the responses they get are often something like, find new friends, or those people weren't your friends to begin with. So it's completely dismissive. It's unhelpful. And we want to talk today about how to navigate the loss of friendships in a way that's action-focused and actually hopeful, not just dismissive. So before we dive into that, we are going to introduce these three awesome people that are here to share their experiences with us today. Monica, I'm going to let ladies go first. And also, Monica has been here with us before, so she kind of knows the drill. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I'm Monica. I'm in Southern New Jersey. I'm 56. This December, I will be 6 years sober, which I can't believe, honestly.
Congratulations.
Pretty
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank
Pretty
you.
awesome.
That's awesome.
I'm a massage therapist, and since getting sober, I started my own practice, my own solo massage therapy practice, which is full, and I'm not accepting new clients. I'm closer than ever to my husband. Being sober has improved my marriage tremendously, and my relationship with my children. I have two children and a stepchild. It's my second marriage, and two cats. We're empty nesters now, but busier than ever, and I think that I think that covers it.
That's awesome. It's all so inspiring. And Steve and I have known Monica since the very beginning of our own recovery journey. So it's just been so much fun to see the growth and the change and all of the good things that sobriety has brought into your life. It's amazing. So
Thank you.
Really happy to have you here and sharing your story with us and with all of our listeners. And Christian, I'm going to let you go next. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, my name is Christian. I am in Glendale, Arizona, approaching the beginning of my third year of sobriety. Thank you.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I am an alcoholic, but I am also a drug addict of the worst kind. So I'm super grateful to be on this side of things. I got sober in AA. I fell in love with the literature. And now I work at a behavioral health hospital, Banner Behavioral, here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm an MSW student at ASU. I intern at a different hospital that specializes in alcoholism and addiction and crisis. And then I also started a couple companies and a couple platforms of my own. So, I'll be able to put this there and help promote your guys' thing and vice versa.
Really cool.
Definitely. I'm so happy to have you here. Do you
Yeah,
want to tell us?
congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to tell us what your platforms are so our listeners can come chase you down and see what it is that you're doing in the recovery community?
Yeah, sure thing. The biggest online following that I have is my professional network on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I'm approaching 5,000 followers, which is really cool because I use it for advocacy and activism. And then I did start my own YouTube channel, like slash podcast. I'm still kind of figuring that out, like you guys are. It's mostly clinical education because, my goal is to be a clinical director. So I like to educate people about how alcoholism, works and how it affects the brain and body, like different substances, how those affect the brain and body. And then, of course, like family system stuff. The podcast is called Cracked Consciousness. And then I also have two clothing slash apparel companies. One is for the private practice that I'm building. That's called Agram, Discovery and Development. And then there's another one that goes with the YouTube channel slash podcast. And all the money is going to housing instability, and we're raising awareness for recovery and mental health.
Fantastic. So
That's
cool. I
awesome.
love how much you're doing.
Thank
And
you.
for sure, just so our listeners know, we are going to have links for everything Christian is doing in the show notes. So make sure you check that out and you can go catch up with him and all the things that he's doing.
It's a lot, sorry.
No, that's
It's
fantastic.
all
I think
right.
it's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting,
Advocacy
man.
is
Yeah.
Thank you
always
so much.
important.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
happy to have you here. And then last
Thank
but
you.
not least, we've got Jeff. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I'm Jeff, everybody. I have a platform as well on Instagram. It's called Sober Chats. We're almost hitting 5,000 followers. I actually met Steve on there. So I appreciate you guys and having me on your podcast. So basically, yeah, I'm from Ohio, Columbus. Go Buckeyes, everybody. So I'm in December will be 8 years for me in my sobriety. I was an alcoholic. I struggled with opiates. Yeah, eventually I got tired of being tired, and I have a family. I have 3 kids, a beautiful wife that I'm extremely blessed just to be here with you guys right now. I woke up another day, so it's a blessing. So
Fantastic. And how long have you been
yeah,
on your recovery journey?
so I'll hit 8 years in this December.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
Yep,
Really cool.
yep,
Awesome.
December 23rd.
Awesome. Super inspiring. I love all of the years of sobriety and recovery and all the hope that you guys are here to share with us. So thank you so much for joining us. So let's dive into this topic. Let's dive into the loss of friendships. I would love if anybody has just an experience that you can share to kick us off, and we'll just talk and see where things go from there. But what have you guys run into as far as losing friendships when you decided to stop drinking? Anyone's welcome to start.
Go ahead,
No, go
please.
ahead. Go ahead. No.
And I'm sure Jeff, I'm sure you can relate to this, bro. Being an opiate addict, most of my friends are either deceased or in prison. So it was easy for me to get away from the lifestyle, if you will. But then when I got into recovery, because I did get sober in AA, like it was really challenging for me to find, uh, you know, people that fully understood like what it was like to be out on the streets like that, while simultaneously embracing like the AA literature. Because, a lot of people in AA are strictly alcoholism. And I tried Heroin Anonymous and I just didn't really like it. So, I have very few friends, but the friends that I do have, I'm very close with.
Yeah, no,
That
I mean, I agree with you, Christian. A lot of my friends are either locked up behind bars or they're not here no more. And I thank God every day. I was able just to pull out of that because that's the direction, that's the path I was going down. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm proud of you, man. It's not easy. I mean, I'm sure. How old are you?
I just turned 34, Jeff.
Okay, man, listen, I'm 33, so I'm right there with you, man. And us still being young, to get out of it now, I mean, is a miracle because we could be on the streets right
Yeah.
now, you and I both, and sleeping outside, and I've been there too, man. It's not fun, and I'm just thankful just to be out of that. And back to your friends, I, I had friends everywhere that I thought that were my friends. And, once I hit my sobriety, I was like, man, everybody just disappears. Like, where's everybody at? And then you realize who's your real ones and who's not. I maybe have one good friend. That's it. One best friend. And then my wife, she's my best friend as well. So, yeah, I mean, I just keep my circle real small nowadays.
Yeah, same, man. Because even what I've noticed is even some of my addict friends in recovery are still like not the most trustworthy people. They haven't worked on like the thinking or the behaviors. Becoming like a person of good moral character. Like our recovery community is large and there's a lot of gossip and a lot of drama, especially when you operate at the level that I operate at. And so I just keep to myself. The couple friends that I do have, they're treatment center owners, sober living owners. They're very involved in the community, and it's just kind of what happens as you get older, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that, Jeff, what you said about you have like one close friend and your spouse. I feel like there's this part of us, a lot of us anyway, that it's like we think we need to have this big, huge, booming circuit of friendships and, be surrounded by all of these people. And I know for a lot of people, when they were drinking, you have the bar and you have your social circles, and you have, for me, it was girls' night and whatever. And so there's all these people around you and you're like, oh, I feel so loved, like I belong here and I fit in here. And then then you quit drinking, so you quit going to the bars and you quit maybe going to the girls' nights or whatever your social circles were, and you feel like your entire social circle just vanishes. What I've found, and I think it's similar to what Jeff's talking about, is I never needed piles and piles of friends. I think that I wanted those people in my life to try to make me feel better about myself. Like I wanted to feel like I belonged and feel like I mattered, and I didn't know how to get that from inside. So I just searched for it in everybody else around me. And I'm the same now that I'm in recovery, now that I'm sober. I have whittled it down and I have like 2 really close friends. And I'm really okay with that. I have people I know, I have people that I get together with once in a while. But when it comes to true friendships, like that number does not need to be big. I am really okay with just those 2 people that I can turn to in like my darkest hours and when I really need something. Like that's where the most meaningful connection is. What about you, Monica? What are your thoughts?
So when I got sober, it was just a couple months before the pandemic hit. So as far as like socializing, that all kind of shut down on me. But I did have, yeah, I would, if I threw a party on my back screen porch, like, it'd be packed with people, but I can't say there was anyone that I was real with like I am now. And I have 2 very close friends. And I'm good with that. But same, I've always felt the pressure to have like a girl gang. I see, like on social media, packs of friends going away on vacation together and that kind of thing. And I've never done that. I don't have that. And it's like I feel like I should have that, but I also cringe thinking about that because I am introverted.
Yeah.
Same, girl, same.
It's like I don't really want that. So what? Yeah, I think same thing. It's like it's the validation or the sense of belonging that I'm looking for. And honestly, I found that in sober community, which was the biggest surprise of my life. I actually found it easier to connect with others in sobriety because we were all laying it all out there like I've never done in my life. I've never been so honest with other people and been accepted. Like that just absolutely has blown me away. So so in some ways, like French, my definition of friendship, it has levels. It has levels.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've got the people I can be real with, and then the others I enjoy spending time with, but there's a little distance maintained in there. And I'm good. I've actually become so much better with boundaries now that I'm sober. Like it's still hard, but I do it.
For
It's like
sure.
It feels good. But yeah, most of my heavy drinking was at home. So actually during the pandemic, that was a challenge, being stuck at home so much. But oh, funny thing, I did have a drinking girlfriend. That's all we did when our kids were in marching band. We'd be up in the stands like hammered, cheering our kids on, and we actually just recently reconnected, and it's been amazing. She actually went through a really rough cancer battle and had no choice but to get sober. And she really had a drinking problem too. I mean, we both did. Hers was a little more obvious in her actions and things like that. But so that's somebody I kind of reconnected with in sobriety. That was a surprise. And then others, kind of went by the wayside once the pandemic lifted, because I wasn't throwing giant parties at my house anymore. They weren't interested in like going out to do things that weren't drinking related. So
Right. Isn't that like the major litmus test is you call someone up and you're like, hey, do you want to get together for coffee at 9 a.m. on a Saturday? And if they're like, no, I'm good. Like
Yeah.
that to me feels like, if they'll always hit you up if you want to go out partying and drinking at, 10 o'clock at night. But if
right.
you want to hang out and do something that it does not involve alcohol at all, like that to me is one of the defining factors in whether or not someone really deserves space in my sober life or not.
Yes. They don't want to go hiking at 10 a.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah. What else have you guys found that kind of helps you distinguish whether a friend really belongs in your life now or whether it's kind of time to let that friendship go? What else comes up for you when you think about that?
I actually just went through this with, somebody that I really care about, somebody that saw me when I was at my worst, just different approaches to, sobriety and recovery. I'm a big AA literature guy. I have an amazing relationship with the Lord. Like, I'm a Christian, because of my past, like, my main focus is becoming the best version of myself that I can possibly be. And so, I do read the AA literature. I do read my Bible, but it's kind of isolated me because not everybody is ready to let go of certain like types of thinking and certain behaviors. And so like even when I go to meetings sometimes, like I have no desire to be cool anymore. Like I was cool in high school. I was cool when I was an undergraduate. So it's like, no, I want to be like a good Christian man. Like I'm really focused on um my education and my career and like the service aspect of things. And, there are a lot of people in the community that are there for, the status and the notoriety and the popularity contests. And I'm serious about the work. So, I care about this person a lot, but it's obvious that, they're more focused on like image and status and money. And I'm like, no, I'm focused on my faith, uh, and like actually carrying this message. So we kind of just went our separate ways, and it's been painful for me, but I still love that dude and he knows that I'm here and I know what he's working on across the city. And for now, we just kind of keep our distance.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, maybe one day, man, that friend, he's going to reach out to you. I really do have a strong feeling, I think he's tuning in to what you're doing, Christian. Heck, he might even check this podcast out once it, drops. And I think he's just like, man, I want that life too, and I got a good feeling, man, your friend's going to come back around and, you're going to be so happy and just proud of him. I really do. Something tells me, man, just my instincts.
I hope so. I think he's just a little bit lost right now.
Sometimes, you got to get lost to be found, and he'll come back around. I really do.
I think
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm really stuck on right now is, we're surrounded by this pop therapy culture thing where, we hear people talk about boundaries and it's not just boundaries when we're like, okay, I'm cutting you out of my life. You don't fit anymore. We're done. Like I'm walking away. And I don't think that's what you're talking about, Christian. I'm going on kind of like maybe a separate rant. And I want to echo what Jeff said. I think we need to be careful about when we put up boundaries, when we create space with people in our lives because they just aren't fitting right now, those choices don't have to be permanent. I think that we can be like, okay, right now, where you're at and where I'm at aren't working together. But there is always potential for the other person to grow, for us to grow, and for us to reconnect later. And I think that the internet, especially all the stuff that's just thrown at us on social media, TikTok and Instagram, is like, if someone, if their friendship isn't working for you, just walk away. And we definitely need to have the wherewithal to make the decision to create space. And I think that's what you've done, Christian. And I think it sounds like you've also left that open so that there's space for reconnection at a later point, depending on how things go. And I think that that's one of the important things a lot of us need to remember with friendships. And you'll hear people say that so often, if that person isn't working for you, if they're not, making your sobriety better or whatever, just walk away from the relationship. You'll find new friends. And I think we have to be careful about how we apply that. And I think that we need to make sure that some of our decisions aren't necessarily permanent ones, that we're just creating space right now for both people to grow and see how things end up in the future. Kind of keep it open-ended and a little bit of curiosity in there instead of just a finite severing relationships the way we sometimes do.
Yeah, adult friendships, they require grace. I've noticed, I'm insanely busy with work and school and my internship and, my companies. And sometimes I prioritize those things like over my relationships. And so like I do have pretty rigid boundaries and I do have to keep a lot of people at arm's length because I don't know, who's genuine, who's an opportunist. The addiction treatment and behavioral health industry can be pretty cutthroat at times. It's hard to discern like, okay, who's in this for the right reasons? Who's prioritizing profit over people. And so like I'm learning to navigate all of this. And sometimes that does require stepping back, and observing, and giving my friends, the space that they need to, restructure their lives and, their priorities and focus on the work that they're doing. But I'm not the type of person to cut somebody off indefinitely. I'm a pretty forgiving person.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that comes too with learning to give ourselves grace and learning to forgive ourselves, right? Then we also learn how to maybe hold space for some grace for other people also.
I wouldn't be a very good therapist if I was judging and condemning and cutting all my friends out of my life.
Right.
So,
Yep, I feel
yeah,
that for sure.
yeah.
Steve, welcome back. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see me here too.
Hi, Steve.
Do you want to share anything with us as far as what it's been like to go through the loss of a friendship after you quit drinking?
I mean, my whole friend group has changed, mostly because I've changed. I stopped frequenting the places that I would frequent where I met people, the bars and those sort of things. I didn't go there anymore because I had no need to go there. So those friends just disappeared. They never called me. They never wondered where I was. They never wondered what happened. We'd cross paths every once in a while and be like, "Where'd you go?" "I don't drink anymore." "Oh," and then that's the end of the conversation. So like,
Yeah.
I think sometimes I realized there came a point where I realized that there was no depth to the friendships that I thought had depth.
Mm.
We had the one shared thing. We'd go out drinking, and then you'd share, you'd bitch, you'd talk about whatever part of life that you talked about, but none of it really mattered anyways because none of it ever got resolved. There was no solution orientation in the conversation. It was just drink and bitch and drink and talk about stuff that didn't really matter. And so those were friendships, I guess, that I thought were friendships because that was my definition of a friendship at that point in time. And then my definition of a friendship changed because I started wanting to learn more about people and what they were about and who they actually were. And if those people that were in my friend group didn't really want to entertain that part of it, we just grew farther apart. It's not that that they weren't supportive or they weren't, I don't know, there for me or anything like that. I think a lot of it is I changed. Because I changed, and Christian, you mentioned boundaries, something that I started learning too. And I think sometimes, like, I took them too far, and then I had to step back. And when you're learning things, you have to take things too far to realize that I took them too far, to step back a
Yep.
little bit, to be like, okay, like I need to be more open-minded than I am right now, because I got very closed-minded. And I think it was, in a sense, to protect myself from all of the stuff that I didn't understand or I couldn't process. And that meant people too. Like, I pushed people away.
Mhm.
And a lot of the loss of friends was, I think it was self-imposed. There was a lonely period where it was, who do I connect with? How do I connect with people now in a meaningful way? In a way that, like, matches who I feel like I want to become. Because then I started thinking about those things in my life. Like, where am I in my life? Who's supportive and who isn't supportive? So Julie, you mentioned, like, when I heard you talked kind of almost like cancel culture. Today's, you're not for me, that means you're against me. No, it doesn't. Doesn't mean you're against me. It means that person is doing their own thing, going their own way. And it doesn't mean that they're for or against you. They're just not following the same highway you're following anymore. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, their destination is different. And
Right.
accepting that their destination is going to be different than mine doesn't mean that they hate the way I'm going. It doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
If they
It's
are,
generally not about you,
Yeah.
right? It's about them and
It
what they
never
need. That's
is.
like the
Right.
most important thing to recognize.
right.
Right.
So, I think I definitely canceled some people.
Mhm.
Not necessarily, and I didn't need to. I also didn't know any better.
Mhm.
I think
It's that
that's,
all or nothing thinking that
Yeah.
we're all so
Yes.
good at. I mean, we joke about that in the recovery community, right? That a lot of us operate in an all or nothing sort of way. And I
Mhm.
think that's true. In early sobriety, I also think it's important to have pretty dang firm boundaries. They just don't have to stay that way forever. You're allowed to evolve into the life you're creating for yourself. Jeff, I'm going to throw this back over to you. You talked about having one close friend. I would love to know kind of what that friendship looks like for you. How does that friendship differ from the friendships that you had previously? I think that's a really important distinction. Do you want to share on that a little bit?
Well, I mean, what's crazy is, so my best friend, we both struggled with addiction. And what's crazy is, during our whole addiction and when it got worse, we were both like, "Oh, I'm not talking to you no more." There was like it was about a whole year and a half where we didn't speak to each other at all, because our addiction just took us completely different directions. He got sober before me and I was still using. Gosh, I mean, I had like a $300 habit a day. I mean, it just spiraled out of control. And I guess, now we're stronger than ever. We can talk, we sit there and we'll talk about our past. Like, "Oh my gosh, do you remember when we used to do this?" Or talk about that. It's good to, sometimes it's good to bring up your past, so you can get that out of your chest or whatever you're feeling. And I don't know, I guess, back to your question, I guess, I mean, our friendship today is a lot stronger. I guess, can you ask that question, I guess, one more time? I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to elaborate on it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I guess the question is, how does this friendship that you're talking about now look different from your past friendships when you were still drinking? And how do you define this one? You say it's good and it's strong. What does that look like? I think probably a lot of people who are listening to this podcast haven't ever had the kind of friendship you're describing. So what does that feel like? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have families for one. I think that's really helped out. Having a wife, having kids. We work together. Actually, work at the same job after so many years. So we're close in that way too. But honestly, it's hard to trust people. It's really hard to. I don't know. Just from my previous times in the past, just having a hard time to be around somebody that I know that's done this or can lie to you or just steal from you. I it's just honestly, I'm blessed to have a good friend like I do right now. I just being that what just going down what we went through together, a dark road. I mean, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, that's why I tell everybody, and your friends are going to change, I mean, and honestly, I had to treat losing a lot of friends during my sobriety, I had to treat it like any other loss, because it was one. And, I went through a lot of sadness, anger, confusion. I felt alone at times. I mean, I missed the laughs, the routine, even if it was toxic. But, I'd also just remind myself that those friendships were tied to a version of me that was self-destructing. Um, and, grieving them, meant, to accepting, serve purpose for the same, season. you know, they couldn't, obviously those friends, they couldn't come with me. I had to learn that it's okay letting them go, even if it hurt. And even if it hurt them, I had to do this for me. And I think my best friend, he had to do the same thing, and we had to be selfish, in a way. And it's okay to be selfish, if you need to focus on your sobriety, because you got to be. I mean, it's just at the end of the day, being selfish was the best decision I made because it got me through sobriety. I went through rehab. I mean, it was, yeah. I mean, I'm grateful to have a good friend like that. Both of us going down the same thing, same road.
I think
Sorry,
that's
I
a big
kind of
part
just
of it
went
right
on.
there. No, that was
Perfect.
fantastic. That's
Yeah.
all the stuff that I think needs to be talked about and shared. That was great. I think, one of the, when I'm listening to you talk, one of the things you're talking about is that you guys were able to build a sense of trust in one another. And when you're going out into the world, when we stop drinking, and Monica talked about this too, when we like pull down the walls and we pull down the masks and we start letting ourselves actually be seen, that is terrifying.
Scary as
And when
hell.
you can find someone that you can trust that will hold that space for you and let you just be as real as you need to be, that's where the trust comes
Yeah.
from. And that's the exact kind of friendship that we all need and probably wish that we had. So many people have never experienced it. So I think, no,
Yeah.
you answered that question really well.
Jeff, I really like that you touched on respecting each other's autonomy and like understanding that, like we are in this together, even if it means that sometimes I have to focus on myself and sometimes you need to focus on yourself because like we are all on our own journeys. And if I get, I'm a codependent, I'm a recovering codependent. If I get too emotionally invested, especially as a therapist, in one of my friends, like not only am I like overstepping and, like my own boundaries kind of get blurred and their boundaries kind of get blurred. How do I stay in my own lane while staying involved in your life and like vice versa?
Mm-hmm.
And
That
it's
one's
really
tricky to figure out
challenging.
too. And again, with boundaries, right? I think that's
Yeah.
kind of been a common theme here is figuring out what our boundaries are and making sure that we maintain those. Monica, what else comes up for you when you think about some of the stuff that's been shared here?
When Jeff said being self-centered for a while, I know it has such a negative connotation, but it's so. I mean, I think it's amazing that we can come to the point where we do go all in on ourselves because when you're in addiction, you feel like garbage about yourself. I mean, self-esteem's in the toilet. There's so much shame and guilt. And to pour energy into yourself, you're at that point where you're like, I care enough about me to go all in on me.
Mhm.
And it really, the when selfish has such a negative like connotation, but it's really saving yourself. You're saving yourself. I mean, and without you, nothing else is gonna happen. Nothing else matters, if we let ourselves go. But I was just thinking how we tend to prioritize everyone else while destroying our own selves. And so to turn that around is just like, it's a miracle. Like, it's an absolute miracle. And you have to consciously protect your sobriety, every hour, every day, until you build your strength up. I feel like I went on a tangent, but
No, you
That
did
was
good.
amazing.
You
Yeah,
ain't wrong
yeah.
there. I mean,
it's hard.
you're
I
entirely
mean,
right. Being selfish has a really bad rap,
Hmm.
right? You're also, if you you look at the AA perspective, we're told we're selfish, right? We are, for the wrong reasons. We're not being selfish to look after ourselves. We're being selfish to take care of our inability to cope with life properly.
Hmm.
That's the difference there. So if
Hmm.
I'm now being selfish to take care of myself, it is so I can give back to others in a
yeah,
way that's going to be
100%.
healthy. I'm going to take care of myself. Like, it's the weirdest thing to say. I'm going to take care of myself before I take care of you. But if I don't know how to take care of myself, how can you expect me to take care of you in a way that's going to be supportive for everyone?
exactly.
Right.
Right? Like,
Right.
Yep.
we know what it's like to give and give and give and give and end up feeling empty at the end. And the emptiness
Yeah.
comes from I never gave to me.
Hmm.
And I'm going to tie this into friendships now, because once I started figuring out how to give to myself, I started being able to understand when I'm sitting in a conversation with a friend what they're trying to ask for. Because I now have experienced what it feels like to take care of myself in a way that is fruitful, that builds me up, that like I'll have energy to give. I'm not giving from an empty cup anymore. And if my
Hmm.
cup is empty, I can actually say, like, listen, I don't have this time, the energy, or the space right now that I would really love to give you. And that's hard. It's hard to not show up for the people that we care about. At the same time, if we don't ever do that, we talk about friendships. One of the conversations that we've had not too long ago, and now we always feel so comfortable sharing our highlight reels. And when we share our highlight reels, and only our highlight reels, whether it's with friends, with whomever in our lives, that's all they ever see. Life isn't that way. Life isn't one giant freaking highlight reel. It just isn't. That's not the reality of it. I always turn around, like, say you do something great in your life. And if all you ever shared was your highlight reel and not the struggles with your friends, they're going to have no idea how to celebrate with you in a way that's real. They're just not going to know what you've been through to get there. Like, I've had people celebrate me now, and it feels fucking amazing because they've been part of my struggle. I've invited them in to see the reality of, I don't understand this. I can't get this concept. I just don't know how to connect with so and so, and this is something that I really want. And so you do the personal digging, and the tears show up, and like the grind of getting to that goal. If you only ever show someone the highlight reel, you're never going to get that reward of that reflection from someone else, because they know what your pain was too. And
Inviting people
huh,
into the challenge is
Yeah.
it's a
huge.
great
And
way to put
so
that.
when we look at this, I'm going to play on that a little bit because I think it's really important. And I think that so many of us miss this opportunity in early sobriety. So, so many of us, our friends were all drinkers, and our socializing with our friends, our spending time with them was drinking, whatever that looked like. And then we stopped drinking. We're like, okay, I can't do those things anymore because that's triggering, because that makes me want to drink, because it's not safe and I need to protect my sobriety. How often do we reach out to one of those people and say, hey, I decided to quit drinking. this is actually way harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm feeling really lonely. Would you be willing to hang out with me and do something different? Would you be willing to go have coffee? Like, here's where I'm at. This is what I'm struggling with. It's really important to me. I also really value your friendship. Can we rewrite what this looks like together? And that is massively vulnerable. Like, that is
Super.
a hard conversation to have. And
Yeah.
yet, how often would just that conversation salvage a friendship that otherwise you thought you just had to let go? Like, if it can't look the way that it always did, then it's just not a friendship anymore. Instead of saying, hey, I really need your support. I'm trying to get sober. Never thought I would need to do this, but here we are. Can you help support me in this? And you're inviting them into your challenge. And there's a good chance a lot of those people that you used to drink with all the time, if you came up and said that, they'd be like, heck yeah, man, let's go do something totally different. How can I support you in this? And you start rebuilding that friendship on a foundation of authenticity and honesty and vulnerability instead of just being like, nope, can't look like that. So I have to walk away from that completely. I think that would be such a huge shift. I remember the first time I told my closest friend, actually, it wasn't planned, and it wasn't probably because I wanted to, but I had wrecked my car and I needed help figuring out what to do. So I was like, okay, here's my reality. I have a drinking problem. I don't know what to do. I'm scared and I need help. And she was like, all right, what are we going to do? What do we need to do here? And it shifted. And that friendship that had always been based on whatever, surface stuff suddenly became a place where I could show up a little bit more real. So I think that's something we need to consider, is just letting someone into the struggle instead of acting like we have it all figured out for ourselves, because none of us have it figured out. We all need people to
Right.
come in and struggle with us, right?
The
Yeah.
the neat part about sharing the struggle is, and I'll give you an example, because my roommate has had a really, really difficult time wanting better. She wants better for herself, but overcoming the mental block of taking a leap and trying something different and going into a foreign place and getting a better job and applying for those jobs and overcoming all of that fear. I've got to witness the whole thing. And when she stepped out of her comfort zone and walked into that fear, it was so easy to show up and be proud and share that moment. In those moments, because I've been able to witness it and be a part of it. And like, that is the way. And it's really difficult too, because it's vulnerable even to get there. But that's how my friendships have changed. My friendships have changed to now where, like, I want to know your struggle because I want to be able to support you and celebrate that victory. I want to, when that victory happens, like, I don't even, you don't have to say, are you proud of me? That shit's coming out of my mouth well beforehand. It just is. And that's the difference now to what it was then, but it's taken a while. Like, I think there's a lot of, if you're in early sobriety, there's a lot of patience that needs to happen. There's a lot of like, it's of what's important to me and how is this going to work for me and how am I going to, express these things in a healthy way. And that's the thing. That's like the healthy way. Not canceling, not like really brash movements, but slow and patiently. Patience is key. Patience. I'm 4.5 years into this and into my own sobriety, and patience. Good things can't be rushed is what it comes down to. Like, the really good things, the stuff that you wish you had now, you'll get in a couple of years. I almost promise you that, if you keep picking away at it and keep working toward it and keep trying. Like, I've had some lonely moments myself, and it's surprising when certain people show up in your life when you need them the most. You just have to be open to it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
I remember the first time I told, one of my friends, like, I admitted to this person that I was scared. I was in really early recovery. I was still like mentally unwell. Like I'll be the first to admit it. Um, and I told him, I said, I'm scared. I was dealing with like agoraphobia. I didn't want to leave my apartment. And all he said to me was, you can do it. And that's all that I needed to take that next step forward. And I'm like actually getting emotional talking about it because I've never had anybody tell me like, you can do it. Now that's all that I needed. 3 words, or
Mhm.
4 words, excuse me. So if we're not transparent and if we're not vulnerable, um, people can't properly support us. And like, I love to support others, and I know how it feels to have somebody like block me out and not want my support. So like, I don't want to make somebody feel that way either.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go back to what Steve said about being patient too. And so many of these people that are like, I lost all my friends when I quit drinking. When you talk to someone and they're 6 weeks into their sober journey and they're feeling completely alone, I guess the thing that I would say is this: you're playing the long game. It's really lonely in the beginning sometimes, but if you give it, like Steve said, it's not going to get better in 6 weeks. It might not get better in 6 months. But in a year or 2 years, you're going to realize that the people that are meant for you are going to start showing up in your life. And it might not happen as quickly as you would like, but there has to be that understanding that this does take time, that it's not going to instantly shift into, oh, I feel so amazing and my friendships are so fulfilling. Like, that is a process that takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of patience. Jeff, did you have something else you wanted to say? I feel like maybe you tried to say something and we missed
No.
it, or we interrupted you.
So for me, it's so different. So I was a young parent, and I had my son at 15, going on 16 years old, and I had trauma, build up in my life with, our parents. So both our parents just didn't see eye to eye. It was a custody battle, and we couldn't be together, kind of thing. And that just, that took me down a really dark path. I think where it started my addiction, especially when I entered my early adulthood. So, basically, long story short, we kind of like split up. I got married to somebody that was not meant for me. And that's where my addiction really took off, where I was drinking a case a night, I was drinking a bottle a night, I was taking pills. And, I was not myself. And, my story, I'm blessed. So back to, like what you guys are saying, I was scared myself. When I was my son's mom at the time, she didn't know I was going through my addiction. And I had one day, I was off to just end it. Like I was done. I was just done. And I was just driving, just trying to cry it out, clear my mind. And I ended up, like I said, at my sister's cemetery, and I just broke down. And I just like, all right, I've had enough. And I felt like that was a sign. Like my sister was trying to help me. And that's where I was like, you know what? I need to tell my son's mom the truth, what's going on. I need to tell her going through addiction. I want to get clean. This is the steps I'm doing. And mind you, this is right before Christmas, like I said, December 23rd. And I was like, listen, I've done a lot of wrong. I want my family back. I I like, I really do. Like, I love you to this day. I made some mistakes. I'm sorry, and I'm gonna prove to you that I'm serious. And made myself go to Florida. I was in detox for 3 weeks, which I don't know if you guys have ever been in detox. It's awful. It's
I've never been to
awful.
detox, but
And
I've
I did a
detoxed, and it's awful.
Mhm.
Oh, it is terrible. And they kept me in there for 3 weeks, man. I've seen people go after
That's a
3 days.
long
I'm like,
time.
whoa, when's my turn? Like, I'm right here. Like, hello. But yeah, they kept me in there 3 weeks. We did a whole like 97 days in Florida, West Palm, Florida. Basically, and when I got back, I got my family back. And it's just amazing to have somebody that you can count on and that's there for you. She's been my rock ever since we were young. And, being back together, now we have 3 kids. It's just a blessing, and anybody else out there that's struggling, that's just going through anything, I promise you, like, there's so much more there's so much more out there. Like, life's short, and and like I said, back to, Christian and I talking earlier, a lot of my friends are dead, and
Yeah.
are and locked up. like that's the direction I was going. And thank God, every day, just I have such a wonderful wife that's just there for me and somebody I can count on where I can go to and be honest and open. If I'm having a bad day, like, hey, babe, I'm having a bad day. Like, I just need to talk to you, or can we talk? Just having somebody to talk to, I guess, and I'm sure you guys have somebody out there, you like to talk to. Um, just being able to have that open bond, I guess. Open, it's open discussion. Somebody you can just trust that they're not going to go behind your back and spit a bunch of stuff off to everybody. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
just
hard to
and
Definitely.
back
find.
to like having losing friends when you quit drinking. Like today, yes, my circle is very small, but my heart is full. You know what I mean? I have my wife, I have my family back. I'm blessed every single day. So I know I kind of went on too. I'm sorry, guys. It's
Oh, no.
just
We
I
love
love
it.
Oh,
That's
you're
what we're
okay,
that.
here
bro.
That's
for,
what.
is to
Yeah.
go on
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
really share what our experience has been. It was great.
Hmm.
yeah. I just
Um,
I just I just encourage others out there, to it's okay to be scared, and you can do it. Just like Christian's friend was telling him, you can do it. Absolutely, anybody can do it. So
Definitely. And I will say to anybody who's listening, I know that sometimes you just don't have anybody you can talk to. So I'll use this moment to remind everyone that we do have a support group that Steve and I host every Monday night, where you can show up and talk to people who get it, who have been there. It's absolutely safe and honest, and everybody is welcome no matter where you're at in recovery. So if you're hearing if you're hearing Jeff talk about having someone that you can talk to about what's really hard in your life and you feel like you don't have that person, come join us on Mondays, because we will give you the space to have someone to talk to and finally feel like you can really be seen. I'm going to go ahead and kind of bring this into a wrap up, and I'm going to ask you guys all a question and see if we can get our listeners some advice and some inspiration here. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who is feeling really lonely now that they've stopped drinking, what would that be? Monica, I'll let you go first if you have something to share there.
For me, the most obvious thing was stay connected to my sober community, showing up to meetings well, for me, it was on Zoom because the pandemic had hit, and I just kind of kept with that, staying connected and, finding close friends in sobriety to talk to. Yeah, I guess you have to push past the wanting to close yourself off when you're
Mhm.
feeling that way. Because I know for me, when I'm feeling low, I turn inward and retreat because I don't want to show that to. But my sober friends are the ones that I can go to because I went to them in my lowest moments already. So, yeah, staying connected, fighting the urge to isolate, and staying connected with your sober community.
Definitely. Yeah, I know that's such good and important advice. I completely agree with that. And those early friendships, when we were at our lowest point, those become some of the safest places, right? Because they've seen you at your worst. You don't have anything else to hide.
Yeah.
Christian, what about you? What advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lonely in early sobriety?
I mean, you gotta get involved. Like, that's what I did. Even though I didn't know what I was doing, and I definitely didn't want to do any of it, I went to every meeting hall here in the Valley, different types of support groups. I checked out online support groups. I went to conventions. I went to like sober music events. And I didn't feel great at first because, like I said, I was still a little bit unstable. I was out on the streets for 9 years, but somebody told me I was like a week out of treatment. And this dude said, you gotta get involved. And I didn't want to, but I did. And it was the most amazing piece of advice anybody's ever given me because, here I am, like one of the most successful people in my recovery community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
huge. Go do the thing that's good for you, even if you don't feel like it, right?
yeah,
So many of us get stuck and we're like, I don't want to. And that's such good advice. Like, go do the thing that's healthy, even if all of you just wants to stay home and not do that. What
yeah.
about you, Jeff? What do you have for
I mean, just,
advice?
even, just it's okay to be uncomfortable. You're going to be uncomfortable and you're not going to be sure. what to do. I mean, and sometimes being in those situations where you feel uncomfortable, eventually you might feel comfortable because people are going through the same thing as you are, or they might have the same story but just a little bit different. Like, there's help out there, there's things you can do. Me having my sober page, sober chats on Instagram, I enjoy talking to others on there. Believe it or not, I probably have anywhere from 3 to 10 people a day that will reach out to me just asking me, like, how can I get sober, or what's the steps to take? And and that fills my heart, because that's what motivates me to do what I do, to help others, inspire. Like, I just love inspiring others to stay on their path of sobriety and encourage them. There's so much help out there, whether it's calling up a close family or a close friend, or just reaching out to somebody like me or you guys. It's just, take the help out there, guys. If you're struggling, like, you're not alone in this fight.
Yeah. The relief that you'll feel when you finally reach out and just say, hey, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to
Mhm.
do this by myself. And it's such a scary thing to do. And then the feeling of relief that comes right after that is incredible.
Yep.
So
You can't
incredible.
I think
give
for
that
me,
to someone. Yeah.
if I was going to share advice for someone who's feeling really lonely, for me, early sobriety was actually about kind of withdrawing into myself for a little while and taking the time to really understand who I was. Because I spent my whole life walking into any social situation, and the first thing I would do was look around and see who I needed to be in order for those people to like me and approve of me. And I didn't know how to exist outside of that space. So to take a step back and be like, okay, who am I actually? What do I need to do for me? How do I want to show up in my life? Not how does everybody else think I should show up? Once I could define that a little bit and gain some confidence in who I was, then going out and meeting people and showing up in my past friendships and in all of it changed so that I could start building friendships that actually had depth and meaning instead of just friendships that were based on drinking.
You have to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm gonna say strangers saved my life. It
Yeah.
wasn't the
Yeah.
people that I knew. It was the strangers that I found the courage to share my hard stuff with that showed up. And I say that because strangers I had no strings attached with. So if a stranger walked away, it was a lot easier for me to accept the fact that they didn't want to hear what I had to say, as opposed to, say, a family member or somebody along those lines. I had a lot of, you're really emotionally tied to those people, and then it's even more difficult to share and be vulnerable with them because of wondering what they're going to think, and are they going to leave, or the emotional attachment there is so thick and so strong. Whereas when I showed up and started talking to strangers who had gone through the same sort of thing that I had gone through in their own way, it took a lot of the pressure off. It made it a lot easier for me to say what it was that was on my heart and on my chest, and so I could see the reflection of me that I needed to see, so I can go and show it to those people that I cared about. And so, kind of like what you were saying, Christian, get involved. The only way to find your people is to go out and find your people. It's going to take a little bit of effort on your part to put yourself outside of that comfort zone that we created, and it's nice to have a safe space. But I'll tell you, some of my safest spaces were in spaces that I didn't think were going to be safe, but they were full of people that were willing to listen to me. They were strangers.
Right.
So anyways, Jeff, Monica, Christian, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for dealing with some of the technical difficulties early on in the episode. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having us.
Thanks for being here.